Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of creating a whiteboard in Flash. In the first tutorial, we looked at how to just go ahead and make this small little graphical toolbox. I call this our toolbox, that's what we called it last time. It's actually just a movie clip with different color palette movie clips inside of them. So we have our red, green, and blue. Those are going to be our colors to select in our different pen sizes. Alright, now we need to take all this, tie it into ActionScript, and that way we can start drawing on this whiteboard and see how the Flash drawing API really works. So let's go ahead and get started. If I open up my Actions pane, let's drag this up a little bit, see a little better. And if I go to frame 1 of the timeline, I've already created an actions layer. If you don't have one already, just create a new layer by clicking this little paper looking thing down here. Click that, select in the first frame, and that's where we're going to write all of our code. If you can't find your actions window, go to Window, Actions, and this window will pop up. Alright, so now we are ready to connect the toolbox to our ActionScript. The first thing we're going to need to do, we're going to need to create a pen movie clip. So this needs to be a variable. This is going to say var pen underscore movie underscore colon movie clip once the code hinting pops up. Computer's just taking a second. There you go. And our code hinting says movie clip. We're just going to hit enter, give it a semicolon. You'll see it automatically imported the correct Flash display.movie clip class for us. That's what we wanted. Again, we're going to create more variables here because anything that's going to change, like we know our color is going to change. We're going to change different colors. We know our pen size is going to change and different things like that. So anything we can think about dynamically that it's going to change, we need to create a variable for it. So our next variable, we need to think about this. We need to know if Flash is drawing, and if it's not drawing, we need to stop the actual Flash API from writing onto the screen. So how do we tell that? Well, we're going to create a variable called drawing. We're going to make it a Boolean, which a Boolean is just simple true and false, or 1 and 0, 0 and 1. And we're going to set it equal to false off the get-go because when we come into the main board, we don't want it to start drawing right away. So I'm going to pick up the speed here a little bit, and we're going to say var pen size. Again, because our pen size is going to change, we're just going to make that equal. Actually, that's going to be a unsigned integer, and that's going to be equal to 1. And pen color, because of course our pen color is going to change this too. This is going to be a number. It's going to be a hexadecimal number. If you're not sure what a hexadecimal number is, look it up. But essentially, it's just a 6-digit number that represents, any given color in the spectrum has a hexadecimal color. So if you find one, you just type it in here. Black is all zeros. So our default color for our pen is going to be black. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to write a couple skeleton functions. And when I mean skeleton functions, we're just going to lay out, we're going to think about what we're doing before we actually code out the entire thing. And that's really important whenever you're making any kind of application. You always want to kind of get a design. You want to create a design for what you're trying to do. That way you don't waste a whole bunch of time, trying code that necessarily isn't going to work. So we're going to make some skeleton functions. The first thing we're going to need is an initialization function. And we're just going to call that function init for initialization, return type of void. And essentially, this is just going to run when our application runs, our program runs. It's going to call this function off the get-go, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to call that function by saying init and then running that function. All right, nothing too crazy here. When the program launches, it looks for this function call. This is a function call. And when it calls that, it's going to go and route to this guy right here. And any code we put inside of this function is going to execute. All right. Now we need to do a couple more things. We need to create a couple more functions. And we need to know, we need to tell Flash, when Flash is drawing, do something. When it is not drawing, do something. And while it is drawing, do something. So the first one, we need to know when it starts drawing. So when it starts drawing, we're going to listen for an event to occur. So if you want to start drawing, the event that has to occur is you have to mouse down. You have to click and hold the mouse and drag around the screen in order to draw. Typical whiteboard application, that's how it works. So we're going to listen for the event. It's actually going to be a mouse event. And we're going to return type of void. Close that out. All right. Now we're going to create another function called isDrawing. If I could spell. There we go. And we're also going to listen for an event to occur. These E's right here, this letter E that I have right here can be anything. It can be Bob, Billy, Jane. It can be anything. Lion, cat, zebra. It doesn't matter. What the important part is, the name is arbitrary. The actual type of event that it receives from the actual function call, which we'll actually get to the function calls in a minute, don't let that confuse you, is what's important. So we're going to be listening for whenever the mouse is moving. So whenever the mouse is moving, that means Flash is drawing. So again, that is a mouse event. We're going to close that. We're not going to be returning anything, so we're going to say void as our data type. All right. Now we're going to create one more function, and we need to we know when Flash is drawing, starts drawing. We know while it's drawing, and now we need to know when it is finished drawing. So we're going to say function finished drawing. These names that I'm giving it are arbitrary as well too. The only important part here is saying that it is actually a function. These names could be anything. Finished drawing, completed drawing, any of that stuff would all fly. So again, when it's finished drawing, that's going to be a mouse up. So when you let go of the mouse, you're telling Flash that, hey, we're done drawing. So something has to occur. And that is also, when we let go of the mouse, that's a mouse event. So same situation here as before. And we're going to have a return data type of void. All right, and that's all there is to our little skeleton so far. So it consists of 4 functions, an initialized function, which is called right here, and start drawing, is drawing, and finish drawing. Well, we haven't called any of these functions, any of these lower 3 right here. So what we're going to do now is start working on that. And the way we work on that is we have to tell Flash to listen for these mouse events to occur. So how do you do that? Well, you just say stage. You're listening for the stage.add event listener. And we're going to look for a mouse event. And in this case, we're going to say, since the first one we're going to do is start drawing. And start drawing, like I mentioned before, in order to start drawing, you have to click down on the mouse. So we're going to say mouse down. And then we're going to put in the function name after that. So start drawing. So let me just run this by you real quick one more time, because I'm going to go quickly through the other 2. But so Flash is listening to the stage for something to happen. It's listening for a mouse event to happen. When the mouse event of mouse down occurs, so when you press the mouse down, it receives that, and then it runs this function, which is corresponding with this function of start drawing down here. And it's going to pass in the parameter of mouse down to here. So it's pretty straightforward, nothing terribly complicated. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to copy and paste to save time. We're going to do the exact same thing to the other 2 functions. We're going to say mouse event. We know we're listening for mouse event, And the mouse event we're listening for is when the mouse is moving. So when the mouse is moving, mouse underscore move, when that's occurring, when the mouse is moving, we know that Flash is drawing. So we're going to say Flash is drawing. We're going to run this function when the mouse is moving. Pretty straightforward. Now when the mouse is up, when you have released the mouse, we want to say Flash is finished drawing. And it's going to run that function, which corresponds, it's going to make a call to that function, which corresponds with this guy right here, this function at the bottom of finished drawing. But one thing we need to do before all this, we need to create a movie clip, essentially an empty movie clip that is going to, we need to initialize this variable up here, this movie clip variable we created earlier. We need to instantiate that. That way we can draw with it. So we're going to say pen underscore movie clip. That's equal to a new movie clip. And there we go. So now I'm going to save that. Always remember to save your work, pretty important. All right, that still doesn't get it done. We need to take this movie clip. Right now it's just sitting in memory. We need to add it to the stage. So how do you do that? You said add child in the variable name. Add child underscore or pen underscore movie clip. All right, now you have this movie clip doing some work for you. So let's go ahead and finish out the rest of these functions. The start drawing function, let's just think about this. What do we need in order to start drawing? Well, we're going to go ahead and make a trace statement real quick. And a trace statement is, just a simple way of telling that this function is executed. All right, we're going to say pen has started drawing. And this is just going to return a string in the output window that lets us know that this function is executing. So we need to change the drawing variable, because remember we created this variable up here of drawing is equal to false. Well, now since we started drawing, that variable needs to be equal to true. So all we do, drawing is equal to true. All right, then we need to take our pen movie clip that we instantiated, and we need to say pen underscore movie clip dot graphics. Now this graphics part gets into the Flash drawing API. So we're going to say dot graphics dot line style, and we're going to set a few properties here. The first one we see is thickness, this property right here. So how thick do we want this to be? Well, that's going to be dependent upon what our pen size is. So right now it's 1, but we're going to have a dynamic pen size that can change between the 3 graphical elements that we have on our stage in our toolbox. So we're going to say pen size. Now we have color. That's going to be correspondent to our pen color variable we set earlier. And now we're going to have alpha. This is how transparent your line is. And we want it to be 1.0 because we don't want any transparency. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to say take that same pen underscore movie clip and take that same movie clip here, and we're going to say use the drawing API again. So we created our style for the line that's going to be drawing. Now we need to go ahead and move that to the mouse's X and Y position. So we do that by saying pen underscore movie clip dot graphics dot move to, and we need to tell it where to move to. Well, we want it to move to our X and Y position of our mouse. So we're going to say mouse X, mouse Y, and it's done. That easy. That's all it takes to start drawing with the actual pen. Now, let's work on the isDrawing function. This is pretty simple. All we're going to say is if that drawing variable of true or false, it's going to return a value of true or false to the if statement. Say pen underscore movie clip dot graphics, accessing the Flash API again, dot line 2, and we're going to say mouse X and mouse Y. Now, what this is saying is just the pen movie clip accesses the Flash API, and you draw a line to where the mouse of X and Y are going. That's all there is to is drawing. So that will go ahead and make the line for you. Now, to finish this off, we need to tell Flash when we have finished drawing. So I'm going to create a trace statement again and to say finished drawing so we can see when this is executed. And we only need to turn the variable of drawing back to false. That's all there is. Essentially one line of code, 2 lines if you use the trace statement. So we just take that variable, set it back equal to false. That way we're not drawing anymore, and the start drawing isn't running and the is drawing isn't running as well. All right, so we're getting close to almost having this complete. Right now it's only about 44 lines of code so far. Nothing crazy for making a really cool whiteboard. Pretty simple stuff. The last bit we need to do is we need to start accessing this toolbox in the different color swatches. We have yet to do that, so let's connect that now that we have everything else, our functions and everything set up. How we're going to do that, we're just going to say toolbox underscore movie clip dot red swatch, because right now we want to access our red swatch underscore movie clip, and we're going to add an event listener just like we did before. And when that event listener occurs, when that event happens, we want to listen for a click. I'll better explain this in 1 second. And then when that click happens, we want to run a function, because you can actually write a function right in here, and we could write these functions out separately, or we could put them right in here. So in this case, we are just calling a different function that we have written below. In this particular case, I'm just showing you another way of doing it. You can actually call it right here in the actual add event listener call itself. So we're going to say function void data type, and within this function all we're going to say is pen color. So we want to change the pen color. In this particular case, we're working with the red swatch. We want to change that pen color. We want to set it equal to 0xFF000. So if you're not familiar with hexadecimal colors, the red value is FF all zeros. The green value will be 00. The middle 2 will be FF, and the last 2 will be 0. And just like with the blue value, the first 4 will all be 0 values, and the last 2 will be FF. So it's just you're sliding over the F's, the letter F each time to get the different color values. That's what makes up red, green, blue in the hexadecimal color value spectrum. So we need to go ahead and close that out. That looks pretty good. Again, I'm just going to show you this toolbox red swatch. If you're not sure how we got that, remember from the last tutorial, if we come inside here right quick, this is our toolbox that underscore movie clip that we set in our properties inspector. If we double click inside of that, we click on the swatch again, you see where we're getting these names from. And this one is going to, of course, be green swatch and blue swatch and pen size 20 underscore movie clip. So now you see where we're getting these from. Let's finish out the rest. To speed things up a little bit, I'm just going to copy and paste these. Paste again. All right. So when a click occurs, when we actually go to this toolbox movie clip and we click on one of these, that's what the mouse event is listening for, this click. It runs this function, depending on which one you've clicked on. The red swatch, we're going to change this to blue because we already have the red swatch set up. So now I have blue swatch, and we just need to change the color value. 00 FF. Same situation. 00 FF. That's going to give us our blue. Actually, I'm sorry, I have these backwards. This should be green, because that's the green color value down here. And this is the blue hexadecimal color value. That's all there is to that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for the pen size. So I'm going to paste this 3 times. 3. Now, instead of accessing the swatches, the color swatches, we're just accessing the pen size. So we're going to say toolbox, because you're going inside the toolbox to the pen size 20, because that's what we named it, underscore movie clip. And what we're going to do is change this color to pen size. This is that variable that we set earlier in the code. And we're going to make it 20. All right. Same thing for the rest of them. We're just going to go through this, pen size 3 underscore movie clip, and we're going to set our pen size equal to 3. And last but not least, here we go. We're going to set this pen size underscore 1 underscore movie clip. We're going to set this. We're going to run this function when that's heard. We're going to say pen size is equal to 1. All right. The last and final thing we need to do is go ahead. Right now, if we ran this, there's still a little bit of a problem. If we started coloring on this whiteboard and we actually happen to roll over the actual toolbox, we'd start coloring on top of the toolbox, and that's not what we want. We don't want the toolbox to be able to be colored upon. So how do you do that? All you're going to do is just swap the children, and we'll do that right now. So inside the function, we're just going to say, we're still inside of our initialize function. We're going to say swap children, and you're swapping between the toolbox underscore movie clip and the pen underscore movie clip. That way it's going to swap depths, and when it swaps the depth, you won't be able to write on top of the toolbox movie clip, and everything will be good to go. So now if we run this init, and again this initialize init is just going to run this entire function, which is all this code that we just wrote. So let's save this out and give it a test. All right, now that this is run, we can see if we just start drawing immediately. If we look at our output right here, we see pen has started drawing. That's when I first clicked and drew this little black squiggle. That's our default. You don't see a black over here because that's what we set it to as default in that pen color variable. We could have set that to whatever we wanted to, or we could even create another black swatch so we could get back to black. Back to black. Anyways, yeah. So pen has started drawing. Let's do that again. If I click down, you'll see it has started drawing. I have yet to let go. And if I actually put a trace statement inside the is drawing function, you'd see that it would just keep running down is drawing over and over and over again. And then click, let go, click, let go. You'll see that's the point. Now, if we click on our 20 size pen tip here and we select red, we're now drawing with a big red line. Again, this red line isn't the same size of this graphic right here. Again, you would have to tweak that and check out the proportional size to get it exactly right if you wanted to, but that's not really much to that. You can figure that out on your own. We have green and we have blue as well too. So if this was like some math problem, we'd x plus 9 million. Yeah. Anyway, so you get the point. Hope you enjoyed these tutorials and you have now been able to make a little cool whiteboard. You could also, if you wanted to create like a clear button, I'll say one more thing. If you wanted to create like a clear button, if we had a button that was like, let's clear this whole board, you could just encapsulate this entire stage into a movie clip, including the toolbox. And then what you would do is you would just say, you'd want the actual stage to change completely white. You change the color value to white. So when you hit clear, essentially you'd be changing the entire stage to the color of white. That's how a clear would essentially work in that case. But anyways, if you didn't understand all these function mess that I was talking about and variables and data types and things like that, more of like, technical beginner stuff. If you don't understand that stuff, feel free to visit me, like I mentioned before, at Creative Cow. But you can also come over to my site at freducate.com, sign up over here, and you can start getting all kinds of useful information of how to, manipulate these programs from a very basic standpoint. Things that aren't necessarily creative. It's not as cool as Creative Cow because, those guys are pretty creative, and that's what makes them rock stars. But at the same time, if you need to learn the basics and you want to get up and running on something very basic, sign up. We got a slew of tutorials on Flash and what are variables, what are functions, loops, event listeners, things like that. Things that will really help you out. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We'll see you next time.